So this is the season of thanks, and for many people, it is a wonderful, wonderful season. We are going into, well, actually, we're already in what I would call the fall and winter holidays. And being grateful for the harvest is something that crosses most cultures. Being grateful for the food that will get us through the winter is something that most cultures have celebrated across time. So this time of year is pretty, what we would call prayed up. We have an expectation. There's a belief within the one mind, within the collective subconscious, that this is a time of year in which we do give thanks for all of the blessings, no matter what they look like. Some of them are a little hard to see as blessings, and that's okay. My talk this week is the Cheerful Receiver. And what comes to my mind as I think about a cheerful receiver is someone who, let me roll this back. I love giving gifts. That's why I love this part of the year. I work really hard to get people the right gift, to make it meaningful for whoever I'm giving it to. I mean, it's just so much fun that I can go out there and shop guilt-free. And there have been times when I put a lot of work into a gift and somebody didn't notice. I remember I was learning to knit, and believe me, that was a process. And the word God was said many times. I don't know if it counts as prayer, but I was learning to knit, and I made this gorgeous, yummy, 6-foot-long scarf that was all super soft. And the person I gave it to just kind of said, "Oh, thanks," and moved on. She didn't ever wear it. To me, when someone creates something beautiful, especially if it's handmade, there's something in me that wants to take the time to celebrate that. And that's what I mean when I say real gratitude. You can see the edge of my comforter, which Reverend Janice Farmer made for me. She never told me she was doing it. It just showed up one day. It took her over a year to make. And so now it is one of the centerpieces in my home. It seems to me there's a couple reasons why people would not be able to be a cheerful receiver. One is, and this is kind of a cultural thing, and if you're not an American, please chime in about whether this is true of your culture and country or not. We don't necessarily accept gifts or help well. We've all been taught not to make too much of a compliment, to just assume they're being polite. And we hold ourselves to such a ridiculously high standard that it's really hard to accept gifts, whether it's love or peace or support, from anyone, much less something as awesome as God, or what some of us would call God. And so in this teaching, we focus a lot on being willing to accept more good into our lives. Last week, I talked about you can go to that vast ocean of good with a thimble or a bucket or a backhoe or one of those earth mover thingies, or you can just go there with a bathing suit. It's entirely up to you, and it does not change the size of the ocean of good. You get to decide how much good there will be in your life. We are so focused on this idea of expanding how much good we think we can stand that when I was taught our version of prayer, which has 5 steps, we call it affirmative prayer, because what we're doing is not begging something out there that may or may not like us today to do something good for us if we, put in your side of the equation, eat your vegetables, be nice to your sister, whatever. When we pray, what we're doing is saying there is infinite good, and I'm going to splash around in that ocean of good until I remember that even my human body is made up of this stuff. Just like the human body is mostly water, when we go into the ocean of good, all we're doing is finding more of ourselves. When I was taught to pray, I was taught the acronym RURTR, and it stands for Are You Ready to Receive? And those letters, the RU and then RTR, they each represent a step of treatment. And short version is basically we start telling ourselves we have a new thought about what God or spirit or life or love or whatever you want to call it is. We speak to a larger idea. And each time we go to prayer, we get a larger idea. And once we're pretty settled in that idea, we remember that we're part of it, that there is no line between me and God. I'm an individual within God. I don't have to lose who I am, but I am part of that vast greatness. And if I am part of that vast greatness, and that vast greatness is all there is, what we would call infinite, then whatever good it is I think I'm lacking, I actually already have. And I lay claim to that good. And I say that it's already mine. And then I am grateful and I let it go. And I let spirit get on with it, because once I've witnessed the truth, spirit, according to the law of cause and effect, according to certain natural laws like gravity, they work just like gravity for everybody. The law moves it into form. And that's all I have to do. So we are very, very focused on how much more good, how much more of a cheerful, happy receiver can we be? And yet in this country, if you're an American, what I find is that we have been taught not to accept our good. We have been taught that if I'm winning, it means somebody else is losing. And that is not the nature of the universe necessarily. It means when we are willing to accept more good for ourselves, when we do the internal work, it starts spreading around the world. And if I'm willing to accept more good in my life, what it means is I've accepted it on behalf of all beings everywhere. And that is something we do when we do our affirmation. And yet, we're not very good, and I know this is blasphemy, but we're not very good at the prosperity thing sometimes. The Centers for Spiritual Living, the international organization, once hired a man by the name of Cliff Christopher, who wrote Whose Offering Plate Is It Anyway? And he also wrote Rich Church, Poor Church, or words to that effect. And what he came in from the outside, he had been raising money for spiritual communities for years and years and years. And the one thing he told us is that we were horrible at prosperity. That our centers are so busy being humble that we don't claim our good. Which is weird, since 90% of what we do is about prosperity. And when I say prosperity, I don't necessarily just mean money. I mean all the good that we can stand, all the grace that we can stand. So we have to learn, we have to rethink the ability to say what it is we need and what it is we want. And as a cheerful receiver, we absolutely positively must let go of the idea that fault or blame and responsibility are the same thing. Here in America, we tend to blame people for being poor. Even though studies show over and over and over again, poverty is not a lack of character, it's a lack of cash. And living in poverty long term actually will lower your intelligence by about 15 IQ points. It's harder to think when you're constantly trying to survive. It's harder to look at the long term when your immediate needs are so overwhelming. And so in this country, the best thing we as religious scientists can be doing is learning to accept more good. We do that by accepting taking responsibility for that which already is. We have to name what's really going on, and then we take responsibility. And when I say responsibility, it is in no way a synonym for blame or shame. It just means recognize that we have the ability to respond in a positive way. We absolutely have the control over our own situation to the degree that we take responsibility for it. When we take responsibility, whether somebody else thinks we should own it or not, what we're doing is saying, I can do something about this. There is a power within me that is greater than I am, that is for the good. And it and I are going to change this situation. This is how we create the world that works for everyone. And so it's time for us to get over ourselves. It's time for us to all get past the idea that we are somehow unworthy. And I have to tell you, I have done work with many, many different people. And to a person, everybody seems to think there's a reason that they in particular are unworthy of all the good that God has. It's not the truth. The sooner we get rid of that idea, the sooner we stop shaming ourselves for not being or not thinking that we're all that in a bag of chips, the sooner we accept that we are powerful, beautiful, good beings, beloved of the Mother, Father, God. As soon as we accept that and the magnificence of our souls, the better life we'll get, not just for us, but for everyone around us. And so I encourage you right here and now to start looking at what you can be grateful for, what you can be cheerful about. I was taught long ago that we are taught in the Christian Bible to be great, give thanks in all circumstances, according to 1 Thessalonians. St. Peter never said be grateful for all things or circumstances. He said be grateful in them. And so yesterday I was on a Zoom call with practitioners from all over this region of the country, from 6 different states. And what we talked about were Corona bonuses. Corona bonuses, and I didn't come up with a term, I didn't come up with a concept, but I love it, so I'm using it. Corona bonuses are something that has happened this year that we're happy about, that would not have happened if we weren't stuck at home. Those of us who are introverts could insert the giggle right here. Oh no, send me to my room, please. We absolutely came up with 100,000 Corona bonuses. Whether it's time to do more prayer work, time to actually slow down, which is what we said we have been wanting to do. I'm also aware that there's a teaching that says if this is answered prayer, what is the next step? If this is answered prayer, if whatever's going around is answered prayer, what's my next step? How do I take responsibility and move forward in it proactively? I would suggest to you that we've all been complaining, I know I have, about the stress of the holidays and how commercial it's gotten and how hard it is to keep up with all the parties. Now, here's the thing. When we make that kind of declaration and affirmation, the law just says yes. Remember, it's like gravity. It doesn't argue. It just does it. And so this year we have the opportunity to try on quieter holidays, more peaceful holidays. And yes, there are still ways to be in connection with the people we love. They don't have to be depressing holidays. We absolutely have the responsibility and the ability to create the world that we would like to live in, that works for us. And as we get more and more gentle and more cheerful about that which is, we're able to create that good for everyone around us. And we do that through the power of prayer and through the power of gratitude. Right now, I'm going to take us into prayer, remembering that however you choose to do this, it's entirely up to you. But what I like to do is close my eyes so I can focus on my inner world rather than, ooh, how pretty the tree out there is, just gorgeous colors. And so I invite you to step into an attitude of prayer, whatever that looks like for you. And I remember in this moment that God, life itself, the power and presence that has taken on this universe as its body, this thing that is the cause of all other things, is all there is. It is good. It is loving. It is love itself. It is omniscient, meaning knowing all things. It is omnipresent, everywhere present. And it is all powerful. This divine being is right where we are right now. And I recognize that every part of me must be part of this vast conspiracy of good, must be part of this same energy that makes up all matter, which we are now calling God. As it is true of me, it must be true for all beings. And so I speak my word on behalf of all beings everywhere, recognizing that the truth of being as a whole, the truth of existence, is the power to create, is the power of true prosperity, is the power of love and peace. And as I stand in witness, with God's eyes, stand in witness to the magnificence of all of our souls, I simply give thanks for that. I give thanks for that which has been true and always will be true. Knowing that the circumstances and the way it's set up might well change. Some of it's going to fall away. Something new is going to come up. And what remains, the absolute pure and perfect principle that always stays, that is eternal. This is what I call God. And I am so grateful for all that it is and all that it is revealing. And I just step out of the way and let it get on that particular project. Let it get back to manifesting good and more good. And as this has landed with you as something true, if you are in agreement with these words, I ask you to say with me, and so it is.